What do you do to reach more people with your podcast? How do you get more followers? I mean, what do you do overall in order to get more people to find your podcast? Well, these are the topics I'm going to be covering today. My name is Alexei. This is Better Business Podcast, and I thought today I'd be sharing how we reach hundreds of people with our podcast episodes. I didn't really think much about reaching 3, 4, 500 people with each episode that we do, but someone's recently asked me that. Basically wondering, how do we do it? What's the process? And look, there is no science behind this. I'm more than happy to share this recipe with you. And I've actually noticed that quite a few podcasters, quite a few authors with very good following are actually really struggling to get 20, 30 views on a podcast episode. Now, having said that, each podcaster has got their preferred platform, so it's important to understand exactly where they stand. But I find it quite fascinating that channels like YouTube, for a lot of authors, have got 3 or 4 views per episode. So either something's not done there, or they basically don't utilize it to that degree, or basically do it for another reason. So make sure you understand the full strategy before you jump into any judgment and stuff. So let's get started. Let's talk about first things first. First of all, I think you really need to research your topics if you want to reach people, because most of the time people search by text. So if your keywords and your niches are not really researched, it's very difficult for competitive keywords to really stand out, unless you obviously use a platform that hasn't got as much competition. I like to base my podcast around trends and keywords and link this to my expertise, or the topics that basically my guests are covering. And I guess from there, there's quite a number of good keywords like WordStream, or even the Google Trends tool gives you some idea in order to understand exactly what people are searching for. And you'd be surprised, some small niches could be quite seasonal as well, where if there's not a lot of content, things will really jump out and you'll get quite a lot of engagement. I think it's important to understand your topics and maybe work out a bit of a map. This is where tools like ChatGPT work out really well in order for you to do some research. So if you basically talk on, let's say, things like sales coaching, or let's say Google Ads marketing, there could be a bunch of different sub niches that you can't even think about straight away, but Google has got a lot of information that then becomes available through various AI tools in order for you to base your content on. I think what's really cool is, just to be able to align with the right market and ask yourself, where is your audience? Where is it the audience that you're trying to reach? Are they on Facebook? Are they in Google? If they're everywhere, well, do they have the time to watch your podcast or listen to you while they're driving? Everyone's obviously different. I find that the whole setup side of things, once you get the topic, becomes important. You really want to make sure that everything is consistent. And if you're doing YouTube, which is the preference for us, we find that a lot of people prefer to, listen and watch YouTube. There are things like, linking your videos together. You want to make sure that one video is being finished, it actually is being linked to another relevant video. And there's obviously an option to subscribe as well. Now, you hear many people say, hey, make sure you ask people to subscribe. Otherwise, a lot of people just won't do it. And it's true. Every time I ask for people to subscribe, and by the way, if you're listening and like this content, make sure you subscribe. That does actually increase your subscribers. So once you got everything set up, once you got a really cool video, good, trendy topic, you obviously have got all the basics snotted out. And obviously for podcasts, the main thing you need is a good microphone. So make sure you get one. But look, in our previous episode, Ben Jones went through a whole process as to how you do YouTube videos specifically for YouTube ads. And obviously microphone is just one of the aspects. Now we're here talking mainly about content. So when it comes to YouTube and podcast, I think a lot of people are quite forgiving in terms of how things look, but when they sound not quite right, that could be a really, really big issue. So make sure you get that sound right. Now, once you get a good podcast episode loaded onto your platform, and like I said, for us, it's about YouTube. So I can only talk about YouTube because this is what's getting enough exposure from our followers. We typically do posts on social media. So I use my personal profile. And I also utilize a couple of business communities online that allow me to post there where people are genuinely interested to follow my message and understand exactly what I push out there, and often comment on certain things. Now that's another thing. You do want to encourage people to comment on the actual podcast episode within the platform that you choose. So YouTube obviously allows for that, which creates additional engagement. Now, once we do that, I would typically send out an email to my list. So I've got a list of potentially friends, people I know, colleagues, partners that I would normally send out my podcast episodes to. And it's good to get some feedback. It's also good to educate them on what's happening, because the idea behind my podcast is to really leverage the time, because many times people approach me and ask the same sort of things. And I really want to make sure I consolidate them and build like a knowledge base, if you like. So if you use, podcasts for something like that, send out an email blast, and then you'll have a reference for people to then find things and be able to look through it later. Now, I don't do it every single time. I usually pick episodes that are most relevant to my audience and send it out that way. I've also got a couple of lists of, clients and very specific target audience, like tradies or dentists that I basically work with and interact with, whom I basically email as well. Now, one other thing I recently have discovered is short videos. Now, short videos have been around forever. However, using them specifically to promote your podcast is really a bit of a strategy within itself. So let me share with you the basics. First of all, if you use tools like Choppity or Opus, I use Opus myself. It actually allows you to just load up your YouTube video, which then gets sliced and diced into shorter videos according to your settings. And look, the sweet spot is probably 30 to 60 seconds. And what I like about things like Opus, it actually gives you a score as to what's actually relevant and well spoken in order for you to be able to generate those short videos. Now, those short videos then would need to be basically sliced into additional niches, if you like, or questions is another good way to sort of approach it, to then basically load up a new channel as well. I find that majority of my followers actually do come through short videos. So if you've loaded your main podcast and then you split that into short videos and blasted it out to the YouTube out there, you're likely to get a lot of people coming back. One other thing I forgot to mention is whenever you set up your descriptions within YouTube, if that's the platform you're pushing for, also include the descriptions and links of the other main platforms that you want, which are typically your Apple, Google, Spotify, and maybe Amazon. But obviously you need to have that set up properly first. So that's typically the process that we follow in order to end up with a couple hundred views each time. I think the most we had was about 2,500 views. And look, I've never really pushed overly hard to get more. However, there are a few extra things that you can do as well. So if you feel like, hey, you reached a couple of hundred people, the process have worked for you, but you really want to push that further. Well, most of the time people spend hours doing a podcast episode. Some of them are really quite good, like studio quality. However, the easiest thing you could do is spend $5 on things like Google Ads, in order for that video to reach even more people. Now, for $5, obviously, depending on the topic, you may reach anywhere between 300 to 1,000 people quite easily. All you need to do is make sure that your content is engaging and it actually does align with people and what they're searching for. So YouTube is great. It's got a bunch of different audiences. It's got a bunch of different triggers, keyword approach. It's got a lot of different stuff in order for you to target people. And once again, check out that podcast episode with Ben Jones I did last week. He talks a lot about YouTube advertising, but I guess what I'm suggesting here is if you want to get a couple hundred more views and followers through your YouTube channel for your podcast, you may as well use the actual paid ads to do that too. And look, it's quite lucrative and it's quite simple actually. If you just follow the prompts, put in your title and description, and look, we can talk about this another time, but I guess what you put in there will make a difference. You will potentially reach a ton of people. So that's it. That's the process. If you've started a podcast recently, you may want to follow this in order to get the most reach using YouTube. And look, for us, we haven't really set any particular goals to really hit a certain number of people, but I do like to grow my podcast, and it's been quite a steady process for us to acquire 2-3 followers each week. I think we may need to set a bigger goal in order to hit maybe that 1,000 at some point, but at the moment it just hasn't been the priority, because I do this podcast purely to help my associates, partners, and obviously educate business owners or people who are starting out there to start a business. And hopefully this information becomes handy in some way. Anyway, my name is Alexei. This is Better Business Podcast. Always trying to provide you relevant information and trying to be transparent about how we do things. If there's any questions or anything you wish to reach out about, please comment below or hit me up via my email. I'm sure you can find it. Anyway, I wish you have a great day and don't forget to subscribe.